And then probably another one after I got called up in '08 in spring training of '09, when him and Frank Coor stole my Honda Civic. So again, back to being a middle-class baseball player. I didn't sign for like as much money as David did. So my first ride was a 2000 Honda Civic. And so the way I grew up was try and pay cash, stay away from debt if you can. Certain things you can't avoid, but so I got a used car for $10,000, spent out about my whole bonus that was left on it. And I still had that ride from 2000, say I bought it in '07. I still had the thing in spring training of '09. So Frank Coor and David got a hold of my keys and brought it out on the field, and it was driving it around the warning track. And I was in the dugout. I was like, that really looks a lot like my vehicle out there in the car, but it can't be they wouldn't be on the field. And then they come out on the PA system, whoever's calling the game. It's like Daniel Murphy's 2000, Honda Civic is for sale. And like David was a prankster like that. He would do that.
Hey guys, welcome to a live Meet at the Apple. We are here celebrating the announcement of David Wright's number retirement. Big day for John and I, just two guys who grew up watching David Wright. That's why we got our David Wright kiddies on right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna turn around because every time I do, you make fun of me for showing the back of the jersey. All right, so then I'll show. I got my this is original OG like 2007 David Wright. Got the good old fashioned lettering. I mean, David Wright means so much to so many people, no matter what age, how long you've been watching this New York Mets franchise for. He is a legend. He's one of very few men to wear the C on his jersey, be the captain of this team. He was a great representative from day one, joining the franchise. We know that it was the Mike Hampton going to Colorado free agency move that got the Mets the compensation pick that they took David Wright with, and he turned into the all-time Mets hits leader, one of the best players in franchise history. And today it is official. His number 5 will be retired. No player will ever wear it again. The greatest honor a team can bestow upon a player, and no one more deserving than David.
I'm wearing my 2010 All-Star David Wright jersey.
You don't see many 2010 Angel Stadium All-Star jerseys, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It's a really weird one. I don't know why I was so excited to get this one specifically, but I do miss the pullover like BP jerseys from that era of like
All-Star games.
Of All-Star games.
Well, this year they wore the All-Star jerseys during the game itself. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the All-Star himself.
But this just shows you, I just want to say, this shows you how much David Wright meant to me and most Mets fans, where I think I have like 3 or 4 different David Wright All-Star jerseys because like when he was in the game, I just wanted the jersey because he was my favorite player. I remember just being a kid watching David Wright play baseball. Everything about it seemed like what like my uncles and what everybody in my family would say, like, oh, this is what a baseball player is supposed to be. And then like you get here and you talk to people who work in the organization and you hear on and off the field, David Wright was just that guy. And then we got to witness that firsthand.
That's right. I got to beat David Wright in trivia about David Wright himself. So maybe he'll get revenge in spring training. But what are some of your favorite David Wright memories?
I mean, there's one that really sticks out for me later in David's career, but it was that comeback versus Philly, his first game back, and hitting that home run.
Returning with thunder, just Gary
like,
Cohen said.
I will never remember that day. I mean, forget that day. Dude, I was so superstitious. I went, the Mets were losing bad, obviously.
3-0 in the first.
I was at my job at the time. I walked into an office and sat by myself away from the TV that it was on, and I just only watched the rest of the game on MLB Game Day on my phone, and literally just was sitting there just like swiping up. And I remember when I see in-play runs.
Yep,
just going nuts.
Yep, the big homer against Adam Morgan. I mean, David had so many great moments throughout his career. One of my favorites, kind of a low-key one, obviously the home run he hit in the World Series was massive. 2006, the Friday night game in the Subway Series, the walk-off hit against Mariano Rivera. That's one of my favorite all-time Mets regular season games. Yankees jump out to a 4-0 lead in the first inning. The Mets score 3 in the bottom of the inning. I think Beltran hit a 3-run homer against Randy Johnson. Score kind of stayed there. I think Kaz Matsui had a game-tying single. And then in the 9th inning, David over Johnny Damon's head against Mariano Rivera for the walk-off win. What an exciting night at Shea Stadium that was. So that was incredible. Of course, the fist pump in D.C. Labor Day weekend in 2015 after he had come back, comes around, scores the go-ahead run in the final game. Or no, excuse me, that was the first game of that series. I think it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series. That was massive. The 2 incredible catches he made. The first, obviously, the bare hand in San Diego, and then the dive into the stands in Seattle, which, you know, everyone focuses on this other catch that an infielder from New York made back in that era, but it was really the catch in Seattle that David actually dove in the stands and made. So that's the best catch there.
John, as much as I want to hear you wax poetic about David Wright, I
could go all day.
Want to hear somebody else's perspective because we have a very special guest today in the show. Daniel Murphy who famously went to the World Series with David Wright,
Yes,
played
sir.
with David Wright. And getting the input from you, Daniel, is really exciting for us because you were there for the later part of David's career where you got to learn from him and get that big league example from a guy like David. So what was that like for you in general?
Man, yeah, I learned at the feet of David. And so, like, some of the things I remember about David were how consistent he was in showing up to work every day. But then it wasn't that he didn't get enjoyment out of it. Like, once we started playing, he played like a child and played hard, but just like every single day he was going to show up. He knew he was going to be in the 3-hole. Like when I was there, he was going to be on the menu, and he just prepared himself. Some days, like later in his career, he might have to show up a little earlier to the ballpark. And then when I was with him, earlier in his career, you knew he was coming in and he was going to post. He used to kind of joke around, and the things he would say, some of them, they would really stick with me. But he'd always say, like, you get tired, you're playing, and it's like, we could be digging ditches for a living. And it's like, it kind of just puts things in perspective. They let us play this child's game for a living. And that's just one of the things I remember at how just consistent he was, like very same person every day. And then for years while I was there, I mean, it stinks to look back on now, but we weren't great. So they ain't ever come to my locker after ball games, after rough stretches. They were always going to David's locker. And so not only was he productive on the field all the time, he was a perfect, great representation of our organization and our ball club within the clubhouse. So.
And here at Citi Field, David had the locker. There's a corner locker that right now Francisco Lindor has, and the captain was there. You kind of see the whole room. Everyone can see the leader. So that's where David's locker was. Now, you and David became teammates at the big league level in 2008. And of course, a lot happened over the years, some lean years there, but 2015. I want to talk about that. Vito was talking about it before. David's return to action in Philadelphia and the amazing run that you guys had going all the way to the World Series. And I'm curious how much, from the team's perspective, did it mean to have David back, knowing all the work he went through, all the rehab he put in to get back on the field and make an impact? And it culminated with that huge home run he hit at Citi Field here in Game 3 of the World Series.
Yeah, it was massive. It was like getting a huge trade deadline acquisition, but he had already been in the organization, and everybody knew who he was, and we all loved him. But when he came back, like you said, in Philadelphia, and sent that ball into the upper deck in left field, like, not a lot of people go play up there, especially when you've been on the shelf for the last, 6 to 8 weeks like he was. And I kind of go back to how much preparation it took for him to play, like what he needed to do to get ready there later in his career in that 2015 season. But the way he would approach it was like, this is what needs to be done. This is what I signed up for voluntarily. I'm supposed to go out there, play and produce for my teammates, and I'm going to show them. And I don't think he set out to do this just as his temperament, but this is how I'm going to show up to work every single day. And they're going to know that when you look in that 3-hole, my name's going to be there. I seen David when he busted his back up, when Carlos Lee tried to put his invisibility cloak on and swipe third from him, and they had it coming together. Like I seen David look down at the toilet, not know how to flush it, and then go taking it back. So like, I know what it looks like for David to post when he's banged up. And that was just who he was. And if you ever wanted to go and talk to him, I remember talking to him one time. It was early in my career. I think it was Nick Evans and we were on the plane. And so David had signed his first deal. So his first deal he signed for, I don't know, what was it, like $70 million? Probably picked up the option on his too. I was joking with him the other day about some of these free agents who are having to carry this qualifying offer as middle-class free agents. We don't carry that thing very well. I didn't like it. And I say, you don't know much about the middle class. I'll inform you of what it's like to be a middle-class baseball player. But he had signed his deal, so I was a young player, and I just assumed, like, everything's easier for you now. You don't have as many cares or as many worries. But he goes, no, he's that same intensity, that same look he had in his eye, I would say, from the time he was a rookie to the time he finished. Like, no, no matter how much money I get, I still have a job to do, to come here and do and show up and do it every day. And that really stuck with me as well, too, because that's a choice. Like how you show up to every work every day, how you interact with your teammates, the fans. I could have been better at the fans. David was really personable with them, always very patient. And, to see his hard work rewarded in 2015 early on. And then you were talking about the fist pound in DC.
Yes, sir.
Like that was, that one gives me goosebumps. Like that one, because that series just in general, the way we kept coming back on them and just kind of like, well, really just let them know what was up. Like this is going to be a scuffle all the way to the end right here, and we got our captain back on the way through to drag us through the finish line. So. Yeah, that was a fun trip.
Oh, it was over. I mean, people think about your run that you went on, and for good reason in the playoffs. But how about game one, the big hit against Pedro Baez? A single up the middle, gave the Mets a multi-run lead, and that was it. So I mean, David had a lot of big moments throughout that 2015 playoff run, all culminating in.
He hit that double in the NLCS too.
That's right, against Jake Arrieta. That's right.
Grandy got the infield base hit. He scored Grandy from first.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
Right over, I think that was
and then the homer in the World Series
that
too.
was over Fowler's head, right? Dexter Fowler at center field.
Yeah, tried to run him into the wall.
Yep.
You know, Daniel, you were saying before that you and David are still texting. Just, are you guys like talking during the Mets season? Just talking about like what's going on with the current team?
Yeah, we talk ball.
Like, what's a conversation like? What are you guys thinking last year? Like, from let's just say like the day the glove goes up in the air, all the way to the day the Mets went 11 games over 500.
Yeah, well, it started as it got into football season. It starts with David. You need to really tighten your fantasy football team up a little bit. You're holding up the rest of our league right now, which is where he finished. Tough sledding. But yeah, we would end up, especially, Francisco started swinging the bat so well, and then the pitching. Like one of my biggest concerns, and not that I know anything last year, was going to be like starting pitcher availability, and the way that Hefner was able to get Minaya and Severino. All the way through the finish line. So we would talk that. We talk about, the polar bear and how he was swinging it. And I tell you one thing about Alonso, he's available. Like he's always available. And he posts every single night. And then, discuss the bullpen a little bit. I feel like the bullpen is where David Stearns gets to express himself the most. So we would kind of just see and talk with each other about, what David was trying to do, and then some of the trade deadline acquisitions as well. So yeah, we just talk a little ball back and forth.
So I want to learn more about just your relationship with David. I mean, the first time you met him, take us back to that moment, that day, your first impressions of David, just all that stuff.
Oh, I think the first time I met him was before spring training. And I was still in the minor leagues. So it would have been like maybe before camp of 2008, I think. And I'd come in January to just work out. And David was kind of rolling through, and there were a couple other minor leaguers. I'm not sure why he was in town. But he said something there too that I said, a lot of these things are going to stick with me, because I want to drive in 100 and I want to score 100. And that was always one of his goals each year, was to drive in 100 and touch home plate himself 100 times. But at that point, so if this would have been like before 08 or maybe even 07, like David had some big old years. So like
30 the year before in 07.
As a minor leaguer coming through and seeing him, I was like, oh, the ringer is in the house. They're going to let me hit with him a little bit. And so, yeah, we got to hit down in St. Lucie. It was a little bit chilly and just on a mini camp, but I remember playing catch with him. I was kind of spraying it all over the place. But his movements were very relaxed. You know what I mean? Like someone who had confidence in the work he had put in the off season and what was going to happen heading into the season. So that was one of my first memories. And then probably another one after I got called up in 08 in spring training of 09, when him and Frank Coors stole my Honda Civic. So again, back to being a middle-class baseball player. I didn't sign for like as much money as David did. So my first ride was a 2000 Honda Civic. And so the way I grew up was try and pay cash, stay away from debt if you can. Certain things you can't avoid, but so I got a used car for $10,000, spent out about my whole bonus that was left on it. And I still had that ride from 2000, say I bought it in 07. I still had the thing in spring training of 09. So Frank Coor and David got a hold of my keys and brought it out on the field, and it was driving it around the warning track. And I was in the dugout. I was like, that really looks a lot like my vehicle out there in the car, but it can't be they wouldn't be on the field. And then they come out on the PA system, whoever's calling the game. It's like Daniel Murphy's 2000, Honda Civic is for sale. And like David was a prankster like that. He would do that, but you had to be ready for David. So like in that situation, I didn't do anything back to him. I just take it. like later on, I might try to do my own little prank on him, but you have to be willing to go the distance with David. Like there ain't no in between. If he makes a move on you and you decide that you want to play this game, like he'll just do something somewhat nuclear that you just wouldn't see expecting. So, hey, one year he took Tags' stuff, Paul Taglieri's stuff in St. Lucie, and put a bunch of foam.
He put the tires on the berm, I heard, right?
Yeah, he did that. Like you got to be ready for him. And so
that's brutal.
Most of the time, not that I could really retaliate to any sort of great extent, but I just was unwilling to go as far as he would. I had an old backpack when I first got called up in 2008 and an old wallet. He put my wallet through the shredder. He was like, this is not big league stuff here. But the next day I had a brand new wallet from, I don't know, what was it, Coach or something like that. You know what I mean? So like, that's the way he would kind of do something and be like, you're not really conducting yourself like someone who's in the big leagues. And then he would go about either giving you something or showing you how to do it. Took me longer than most people.
Daniel, I want to get just one more story about David from you. And that is in 2015, when you guys are on that run, you know, this year we got to see some footage of like Francisco Lindor and Carlos Mendoza talking in the locker room. What was it like during that run when David, the captain, stood up there and spoke to the entire team going into those games?
I think it helped recenter me. You know what I mean? Just because that was my first postseason. And so these games were so intense that like I'd be sick to my stomach on the way in and exhausted on the way after them. And so that kind of level of anxiety and fear that I was feeling at the time whenever David would speak would be like a calming presence, almost in a way of like just recentering me to understand that your job, my job is not to take this thing over. It's to do kind of what the scoreboard asks us to do. And if enough of us do that offensively and defensively, then we're going to put ourselves in a position to win this ball game. And I remember him and like K-Long would talk about it, like, a runner in the postseason is a rally. You get somebody on first base and you're like, we're on. And it was kind of that reminder that it was still baseball, even though you had less games to compete with and more eyeballs watching you. Because I don't know, I'm a little jittery to begin with anyway, if you've ever seen me try to defend. And so it helped to kind of recenter me. And then also David had a little bit, so he hit the home run in game 3 and I wasn't swinging the bat well at all. And I didn't swing it well in the World Series, but he was pumped and he should have been pumped. And I think he's trying to get the ball. And so I wanted to poke him a little bit, right? Because I don't get many chances to poke him. And I said, hey, Dave, is that your first postseason homer? And you could see it stunned him just a little bit. And he goes, how many you got in the World Series? I was like, bet away. There he comes. I had 0 in the postseason. But just a little poking that we would do back and forth. And he was always there to give you advice if you asked for it, or to just be one of the fellas. You know what I mean? Whereas somebody like me, not that I was unwilling to give advice, but I was more one of the guys. And David was the one that was leading us. And he never shied away from that responsibility and took it on voluntarily.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We're going to go to our next guest now.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Cliff Floyd. Now, I think this is a really cool juxtaposition right here because we just spoke to somebody who was there for when David was already established, became the captain. And now we get to talk to Cliff Floyd, who David kind of credits, who taught him how to be a big leader, to you, Cliff. And an interview that's out right now with David and Jay Horwitz, David said that if it wasn't for you, like, you're the guy that taught him how to be the player who stood by his locker, how to answer for everything, how to act like a big leaguer, helped him get his first suit. So, what is it like to see what became of this guy's career?
I mean, it's amazing that he gave me that much credit because he don't give credit a lot. Y'all know that. You know what? He came into the league very humble, and it didn't take much. I think sometimes you sit back and watch guys, and you go, okay, he might need this, and this. Talent's there, but he might need a little push. He might need a little talking to just stay straight. He ain't need much, man. And I told him that. I was like, look, the only thing I want you to do is make time for yourself. And so what I meant by that was when you get to the ballpark, yeah, Jay gonna have some stuff. Yeah, PR's gonna have some stuff. But make time for yourself, bro, to get ready for the game. Because at some point you're gonna be counted on huge and you have to come through. You're never gonna hit eighth and ninth. And nothing against eighth and ninth because you're in the league, but you're gonna be counted on differently. And so he took that, ran with it. And when you put the hard work with the talent, you get what you got. And that's your number retired and number 5 still living in the stadium. If you can have a number living in the stadium when you ain't playing, you did something right.
And David absolutely did something right. And his major league debut in July 2004 kind of coincided with the franchise really getting on the right track. In 2005, you guys had a really good season. Of course, you had Pedro and Carlos Beltran. And then 06, you guys run away with the division. But from your perspective, when you first met David and you saw what he could bring to the table, when did you realize that, okay, this isn't just a ball player. This is a guy who's going to be a franchise's icon who could actually one day have his number be retired?
So, I've been in the league for a while already, right? So I've seen some guys. I played some really talented cats up in Montreal, in Florida. Like, I've seen some talent. When you go through Sheffield, Larry Walker, I can keep going on and on. You mentioned Pedro and so on and so forth. You hear baseball player and all this stuff all the time. It's just a different look that a dude has when he comes to the park every day that lets you know that he wants to be a superstar. Now, everybody thrives for it, right? Like I thrive to be a superstar every day. I think everybody, when you step on the field, if you think that you can be that guy, you thrive to be a superstar. Some people want to stay in their lanes, whatever the case may be. He had a different mentality. It just was different. It was just you could see him trying to master the game and slow everything down and also be a guy that didn't try to do too much. So all that put together and then saying, hey, I'm going to build on my everyday stats. I'm going to build on every day being in the big leagues, never taking anything for granted. You put all that together, and then the pressure that Daniel was talking about of being the franchise face, it can take you out. And I've seen it take some guys out. He was ready for that. He embraced it. He took it. Like I said earlier, he ran with that. And I think every time the organization or, Willie or Art or whoever threw him something, man, it was never a curveball. It was he just always took it and was like, yeah, I got you. And that was early on. So when he hit that window of being consistently good to go along with who he is and his personality, it was a wrap. It was, it was the loudest, ovation you could possibly get because people came to the ballpark. And yes, Piazza, yes, I get it, Pedro's and the Glavins, I get all that. But people came to the ballpark to see David. They really did.
And I feel like David Wright's career, in a way, can be separated into two chapters: the Shea Stadium chapter and the Citi Field chapter. We know he hit the first Mets home run at Citi Field. And in 2006, ground was broken on Citi Field. And 2006 also happens to be, for my money, still the best team that Vito and I ever saw. 97 wins. You guys were amazing. I still have nightmares about the way it ended. I'm not kidding. I still sometimes wake up and think about it. I'm sure we all do here.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I know. But let's talk about the positive from that season and the 97 wins, the regular season. How much fun was it being a part of that team, and what kind of an impact did David have as a leader and just a great overall player?
Well, leader was something that, I won't say had to work at, but it was, he wanted to play ball, but he knew he had to be a leader, right? So sometimes, it's uncomfortable, but you do it, and you do it not so great because you're very uncomfortable. He was never uncomfortable. He just didn't want to do it, and not not for any reason other than the fact that he was like, look, I want to play ball. I want to be great. I want to do everything I need to do every single day to help this team win. But if you need me to police the clubhouse at times, or whatever the case may be, I'll do that, right? And then he took on that responsibility. But when you look at that team and how much fun we had every single day, it was so easy to get into the ballpark at noon, 1 o'clock. It was just fun. It was easy. we had our little corner over there. We had Jay messing around with Jay. We had so many things going on. I put Ebony magazines in this dude's back, bag,
Didn't
and
have
went
that on
through
my bingo card
TSA.
here today.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you name it, we did it, and we had the most fun you could possibly have, in a situation other than the fact when we got to the end and didn't finish it. But you know, those are memories you'll never ever lose. And when you think about what became of D Wright, to have a little bit of his success based on the fact that some of the little things we talked about. And then I did. We just talked and pushed them. It feels good. It really does.
Now, so I brought it up before. David has said that you took him suit shopping early in his career. We know David's fashion sense from his GQ cover that we're, big fans of growing up as kids.
Where were you, by the way? Why weren't you there with Jose and David for that GQ fashion shoot?
These cats really wanted that window by themselves. Bro. It was like, look, this is us. Beat it. I'm like, cool, you do you. But you better look good, because if you don't look good, you're going to get smashed for as long as I know you.
So do you have any stories?
They pulled it off.
Do you have any stories from taking this kid from Virginia who's finally up in the city to go shopping? And like I said, we saw David's fashion sets at the time. I feel like you probably had a lot of advice to give him back then.
No, there's no. And listen, you seen his fashion, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, he like it. I don't care how rich he is. He looks like the rich guy, not going to wear too much, not going to flash. Me, on the other hand, you give me $100 million, I'm going to like some of these cats to play, like Jefferson with the Vikings. This dude's playing with 3-4 diamond chains on. That probably would have been me. D Wright wasn't that guy. So I think when you look at him, man, see, to me, that's the humble part of this kid coming from Virginia and knowing that, like, I'm going to stay me. I'm going to stay true. I'm going to enjoy this ride. It's going to be dope. It's going to be amazing. But I'm going to enjoy every single minute of it, and not waver. It's the hardest thing to do. Get all this money, stay humble, very good looking. I tell people all the time, they're like, yeah, he was good looking. I ain't going to tell him that, but he's a good looking dude. And got a lot of props, got a lot of love. It's very hard to stay humble. And he stayed true 100%, never wavered off 100.
Now, throughout David's career, were there any times where he reached out to you just for your eyes on him after you guys played together?
Yeah, I text him quite a bit. If he was struggling, if I heard he was struggling, I just text him, and all he wrote back, I appreciate you, because we brothers for life. I mean, and, people always say, you played a big part. I'm like, well, Marquise Grissom and Larry Walker and Randy Milligan and Gaston so played a big part in mine. And the one thing that I remember Marquise saying to me was, you bottle this up and you pass this on. It might be a lot, it might be a little. I did way more for Carl Crawford in Tampa than I did for D Wright. You know what I mean? Different strokes, different folks. But I feel like my eyes just knew to leave D alone in certain areas. Like when his voicemail had David Wright on it. Like, now you got to take the Wright out. Like, we know it's David's phone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not calling my agent. You know what I'm saying? Little things he needed. He needed nothing other than understanding what was expected of him every single day as far as just preparation. Once he got that down, it was a wrap.
Now, Cliff, you were teammates with David in 05 and 06, and I've been wondering this, and I debate this with people, and I'd like to get your opinion on it. He made an incredible barehanded catch in San Diego in 2005, and he made an incredible diving play into the stands in Seattle as well. Which was the more impressive play?
Well, I'm going to have to say the one in San Diego, because he did it in front of me, and I was ticked off. So I'm like, bro, I got that.
Were you getting to that ball, Cliff?
Probably not, but I felt like I was.
Okay, I'm glad you said it. I don't want to be the one who said it, but it was a fast sinking looper. So I don't know. And I said to him, I was like, bro, like, he goes, I don't know. Like, some things you do, you just don't know you're gonna do them. But to do that in front of me, I mean, it was
we don't see that. I think the only time we ever seen that was Kevin Mitchell back when the Cincinnati Reds days. That's it, right? So, but that was him. Always doing something that's gonna stand out and be the highlight of the night, be the highlight, for a long time standing. So, nothing that I didn't, didn't expect him not to do.
Well, Cliff, thank you so much for joining us, man. I know this is a very exciting day for us, but somebody like you, like you said, you had a big impact on David Wright's career, been friends with him for all these years. I'm sure this is just as exciting for you to see, probably a lot more than us, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man, and I look forward to that day, man. It's going to be special. Y'all know that too, right? It's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah.
We can't wait. July 19th, right here at Citi Field. Be here, a special, special day. Cliff and everyone, we look forward to seeing you and honoring one of the best Mets of all time.
No doubt. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Cliff.
Now, John, we're going to go into late night mode. I don't know. I know you don't watch a lot of TV.
Oh, I watch plenty of TV.
In late night TV, you got to move down the couch sometimes. So we're going to move down.
Okay.
Because we're bringing on our next guest in person, Jay Horwitz, who's been there since day one of David Wright's career.
He's gotten a couple mentions on the episode so far. Jay, you need a sip of water? You good?
Yeah, I'm dying over here.
I didn't know if it was TV magic to give a peek behind the curtain and say that it was coughing off screen.
Well,
Daniel gave a look. He was wondering what was going on.
That was me.
That was Jay. That was Jay. So this is worlds colliding right now. This is amazing Mets conversation.
Right.
We got Meet at the Apple, and we're all here together to honor and talk about David Wright. And you and David have an incredible relationship. I mean, you heard Daniel talk about the pranks that he played on Daniel and tags and so many others. You as well. I know David really messed with you a lot over the career.
Well, not really, to be honest with you. I mean, he did it to other people, but I mean, my favorite story was I was told that he put a door on Paul Taglieri's office so he couldn't get out of his office.
That's insane.
He put his car in center field, put foam rubber in his office, in his car, and everything. But my first meeting with David is just the fall of. This is July of 2004. We're in Houston. I get a call from his agent, Sam Levinson. He said, I need a favor. David wants to meet Scott Rowland, who's playing in the All-Star game. Could you arrange a meeting? So I made up this fake credential from David Wright, the Norfolk Times, got him into the locker room. He's met with Scott Rowland for an hour and a half. Scott gave him all the ins and outs of what it'd like to be a major leaguer. And that shows you how detailed David is. He wanted, before he get called up like 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I was going to say, July 04 was when he came up.
Yeah, he got to go 2 weeks later. And he wanted to and Scott was nice enough to give him a nice prep and what to expect. And I got into a little trouble for making up a fake credential. But
wait, it's just a straight up counterfeit fake credential.
David Wright, Norfolk Times.
I thought you said Tides, but you're making up a newspaper here.
Yeah, it was no such
Oh,
thing.
Jay, I don't know about that. Yeah. I don't know about that, Jay. That's not kosher.
No.
Today you could have just said he was a blogger and just gotten him in there really easy.
Yeah, they let anyone get a microphone these days.
But Jay, like I said before, you're one of the few people who really got to see David from day one all the way till right now. And when do you think that moment was that kind of like David went from being young guy in the team to leader of the Mets?
Well, probably during the 2006 playoffs. But the one thing really impressed me more than any of the home runs and RBIs, in 2005, when he was like 24 years old, he started his own foundation. And how many 24-year-old kids start their own foundation? He's dedicated, raised over $1 million to a local hospital in Norfolk. He's the guy. He never forgot his roots. He got both sides of it. The playing, the autographs. One day in Philadelphia, it was about 3-4 in the morning. We just lost a tough game on a Friday night, and we're getting ready to go to the bus. And his two little kids are walking towards the bus. David holds up the bus to sign autographs. Spent about a couple of minutes, with him. And not many guys would have done that. So I mean, you have all the All-Star teams, the Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers. But this is a special kind of guy. He just got everything. Everything he did, he just did it the right way.
Now, what about the baseball? We know that David's an incredible guy, but on the field, so many memories. I mentioned a couple of my favorite: the walk-off against the Yankees, the catches he made in Seattle and San Diego, the DC. Yeah, let's hear it.
The home run in the World Series against Kansas City. I tell you what.
Yeah.
I went down to Florida with him He was rehabbing in the Florida State League. Took him about 4 hours to get ready for the game. He was just trying to come back from spinal stenosis. Didn't know how well he would do. To get ready for a Class A game, he would come in to the locker room at 12:30 in the afternoon. Was all of his exercises, stretch, and it wasn't until game time that he would say, "Okay, I'm okay to go." And I remember him. I think we won the game 9-2 or 9-3. It's the third game in the World Series. He was jogging around the bases, and I remember, God, I mean, he never thought he would get to that point. He never thought he would get to the point. And all he had, people understand the little he played after 15. It was such a stress for him to play. He would come in, 11, 12 o'clock in the morning, go to the weight room, and it wasn't until like an hour or two before the game when he let Terry Collins know, "I'm okay to go." But that's how driven this guy was.
Yeah, I've actually recently watched that clip back a few times, as I'm sure many Mets fans have. And Joe Buck, while he was stepping up to the plate, pretty much said, like, we'll see what the captain can give the Mets here. It's kind of an unknown. And then a couple of pitches later, he deposits one in left field and gives the Mets a lead. And Citi Field went absolutely bananas, like you mentioned, on their way to winning that game. And I think what's such a testament to what he meant to this franchise, and we haven't talked about it yet on the show, is his final game when he came back in game 161 against the Marlins in 2018. When in any other circumstance, that's a meaningless game. The season's over. You're playing out the string. But that night, Mets fans, 42,000 plus, showed up. One last time.
He did that for his kids. He wanted desperately to see his young kids, see him on the field.
Right.
And that's what he was driven by. He knew it would be for only 1 or 2 games, but he wanted to, when one of his daughters threw the first pitch to him, he wanted to get back on the field one last time. And why couldn't the Marlins first
Peter O'Brien. I was about to just... What the heck, Peter O'Brien?
You know the other part of the story that he sent over an autograph. He wanted David to autograph the ball from after the game.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, after the game, he said, Peter O'Brien sent the ball over, and I think David could you have dropped the damn thing?
That's incredible.
Yeah. One
That
other
is
story
such
before
a
I forget.
funny anecdote.
If you got into it, Murph. So we're in Philadelphia. He's coming back from the rehab. This is the Friday night game. So he's sitting in Terry's office, and he says, "Listen, Skip, don't have to play me. I don't need to play. David, you're the captain. You got to play. Listen, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Yeah, if you don't want to play me, don't play me. Hits a home run his first at bat. And the night before, I'm reversing the story. I don't know where we came from. We got to the hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning. We go up the elevator, the second floor of the Westin. David Wright is in full uniform, handing out hot Entenmann cookies to the guys. He said to me, "Why are you doing this?" Because I've been away for so long. Maybe these guys don't know who I am anymore. So I want to give these guys cookies. Guy had no ego. For as good a player, was not an ego. No trace of, never I. And David used to hate to talk to the media after he had a good game. He used to hate that. But if he had a bad game or somebody else didn't do well, he would take the bullet for him, And he learned, like, from guys like Johnny Franco, he
played with Mike Piazza.
Mike, And I got to say one thing, too. You know who he really helped a lot? Probably the people don't know is Jacob deGrom idolized David. They would sit in the corner on the days he wasn't playing, and he would talk to Jacob. Hey, if the meeting comes, you got to do this. You got to be a stand-up guy, and he followed. Jacob, he didn't like to go. Jacob was not an I guy, and because David said this is something you got to do, and he would look at David. Should I do it? David would give him a wink. You got to do it, and that's. And he did it with a lot of the young guys, with Steven Matz and Noah Syndergaard, and other guys. But he tried to assume his leadership role in other ways besides when he couldn't play at the end.
You bring up David. Never having an ego. And one thing that stuck out to me, and it's something that I've learned from interviews with you. You can listen to amazing conversations with Jay Horwitz. We got the sign right here.
Picture that's me. I haven't coughed in a while.
You have an interview.
Handsome, by the way. There,
very suave.
You have an interview with David out today where you talk about a lot of this stuff in detail with David. So go after this, go listen to that interview. It's on the Mets YouTube. But one thing I always hear when you're talking to alumni and David comes up is a lot of these alumni say that, like, David was one of the rare guys who, when they came around, David was always grab them.
And one quick Tom Seaver story. Tom loved David. And when Tom threw out the first pitch in the World Series, he asked David to catch him. David appreciated Mets history. He knew what Tom was about. And when Tom was an ambassador, TV guy, David would always make time, go in the dugout, sit with him, and talk to him. And Tom, they both had a special bond. I think it's pretty only fitting that Seaver and David are the only two guys to have their number retirement going to Hall of Fame on the same day. We had a lot of good players. That's a pretty good honor.
Yeah.
But Tom appreciated David's dedication to him, and David knew what Tom was about in more than one way than it was.
Did David, growing up being a Mets fan, did that like shine through to you when you first met him?
He always, because he's from Norfolk. We had the old Norfolk Tides there, and he lived and died with the Mets there, and I think his parents deserve so much credit for what his father was a police officer, and I think guys, I know it's trite kind of stuff, but anytime there was an emergency that happened, a policeman got shot, a fireman was killed, Hurricane Katrina. He would call the office, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Remember a couple of years ago, it was a mass shooting at Virginia Tech. One of his brothers went there. How do we get a hold of the people there? Anytime we got a new player, a draft choice, give me the number I want to call him. Little things behind the scenes that David always did and maybe gets overlooked a little bit.
Total class. And I mean, as two guys who grew up watching on TV and coming to Shea Stadium and then Citi Field and being and rooting for him, idolizing him in many ways. I mean, we're both wearing his jersey because we grew up rooting for the guy. It's so great to hear that he wasn't just a great player and he wasn't just a great Met, but he was a great person and a great role model. And it's comforting to know that like we picked the right favorite player.
Yeah, he also was a pretty good fantasy football player too.
Was he?
Yeah.
Were you in the league too?
Yeah, I never won.
No.
Were you a co-owner with him? Who was he?
No, he was with his friend Dave Racanel. That's another story. His best friend is not an all-star center fielder or Hall of Fame player. Dave Racanel,
The bullpen catcher.
He was the best man at his wedding. They've been and the guys he's friendly with are the, how can I say this, down to earth kind of people. Paul Tagliari, Trev Van Allen in St. Lucie. Those are the kind of guys who befriended him, and he stayed loyal to his friends, and Rock is a perfect example. They've been friends through the years. He was the best man at David's wedding. They talk all a lot, and I'm sure Rock will be front and center at David Wright Day in July.
And shout out to Josh Satin, who we found out that David and like Josh Satin are still very close friends, playing golf together all the time. We heard the foursome is Josh Satin, David Wright. I think he said Harvey jumps in there a lot, and then Murphy are in that. Yeah. That the four of them play a lot of golf.
2013 Met royalty right there.
Went to London with him.
Yeah, Satin was there.
Yeah, he was there again. And but I mean, I'm 204 to 218. I missed hardly any of his games live or on TV, and I'm really honored. He's a good friend and just good people. That's why he's just good people.
Do you think we should play a prank on him on July 19th, maybe? We're not gonna announce it on the podcast. He might be watching, so I don't want to give it away. But we should cook something up, just for good measures. What do you think?
I wouldn't want to invite. He loves cookies. Anything you can do with cookies or
He loves cookies?
He loves cookies.
I was thinking maybe like we unveil the wrong number accidentally. Like, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's not number 5.
One last story to tell you before. He coaches his girls in
soccer, right?
Soccer team. So there was a meeting at home plate where we're winning the softball game, and a woman's coach goes to him, so, Mr. Wright, you have any involvement in baseball at all? What's your background? No, I dabble in a little bit. He didn't want to insult the lady by telling her who he was. And the woman said, well, this is my third all-star team. We got great people. We won the league the last 2 years. And no, I didn't do much. This is my first try at baseball.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Well, Jay, thanks so much for sitting down with us. And thank you all for listening to this episode, this live edition of Meet at the Apple. You could go listen right now to Jay's interview with David Wright. If you want to hear David Wright really react to his number retirement, it was somebody who, as you heard right here, is incredibly close with David and got some really good stuff out of him. Really great conversation. It's on the Mets YouTube right now on the front page. But thank you all for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at Vito F. Khaleesi, at JMB9191. Meet at the Apple. Like, subscribe, Apple, Spotify. Also, look at my Twitter, Instagram. We are up for Baseball Podcast of the Year. We need some votes, so give us those votes. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for meeting us at the Apple.
I got 5 on it.